Today we're going to fix a problem with this Dino Baffetti Black Pearl 2. The owner has sent this to me because there's buttons, some of the buttons stick down, not doing it just now, but it means that when it happens a note will play continuously, which is obviously no good if you're trying to play music. The solution to this is to completely strip down the keyboard, clean everything, make sure everything's free, and then put it all back together again. So that's what we're going to do in this video. So we've got a few tools that we're going to need, a screwdriver, a drill bit, a drill chuck, and a polishing block, and we'll talk about those when the time comes, and a tray to put bits on. So we'll start off by removing the bits of the instrument that we don't need, so we can take off the treble grill cover. And I'm going to remove the reed blocks as well, that's these two parts, because we don't want bits and pieces falling into them. So we'll remove the screws from here. And then the reed blocks lift out. So we're then just left with the basic casing. Now the way this keyboard is constructed is each button has a wooden lever which is set into the keyboard, and there's a steel rod and a pallet attached. And running through the keyboard is a steel rod, which is the axle that all these things are fitted to, and that is under this little metal cover. So there's one screw to remove. To take that off, and there's the end of the axle. Now there's not very much sticking out, so we've got to be able to grip that without damaging it, and this is where I like to use a drill chuck. So that goes over the end of the axle rod, tighten it up, and that will now, if I rotate that now, I can feel that it's rotating the whole axle rod, and I'm gradually going to, as I rotate it, pull it out, and it is beginning to move. And I'm now going to loosen the chuck and just slide it a bit further onto the rod so it's got a bit more secure hold on it. And now I can start to withdraw the axle, and as the end of the axle's up here at the moment, as it passes down, in turn each of these levers are going to come loose, and there's a spring underneath each one which you can't remove beforehand on this design of keyboard, so it's possible that the levers may jump out. So I'm going to keep the finger over there as I continue to pull this out. And there's the first lever. Now these all have to go back in exactly the same place, so it's important to make sure there's a way of doing that. And the way I prefer to do this is just to number the levers. So I'm just going to, with a pencil, I'm going to number that as 1, and then also lay them out in order on the tray. And there's 2. It is quite tight, but that's the way it should be. $16, $17, $18, 19. So that's all of the levers out. There's a bit of dust on here, so I'm just going to brush that off. And this is why I removed the reed blocks, because if it's, you know, removing this dust, some of it might drop into the reeds. And I'll just have a quick check down here to see there's nothing, there's no junk down there that could be getting in the way. And take the rod out of the axle. First thing to do is to check that this is nice and smooth. Just by running finger and thumb along it, I can feel a very slight roughness just about here, and I can see a little bit of a mark on there. It probably doesn't show up very well, but I can feel it certainly. So I'm going to use the polishing block. This is it's a rubbery material with a very fine abrasive in it, and I'm just going to use that to polish the surface of this rod, so make it nice and smooth. You could still feel a slight roughness there, but I think that's probably as good as it's going to get. Ultimately, you could replace that if necessary. So then we take the levers one at a time, and you can see the hole that the axle rod fits into. And I'm just going to check each one in the same way by putting the rod through there, and then checking to see if it will spring freely. And there's a bit of stiffness in there, so there's probably a bit of dirt build up in this hole. So the tool I'm going to use to clear this out is a twist drill bit. Now this is slightly smaller than the axle rod, because under no circumstances do you want to make the hole bigger, because if you do that, then the lever will be loose, and it will mean the keyboard doesn't feel right, and it could mean that the pallet can move sideways and not do its job properly. So I'm just putting the drill in here, and just with my fingers, not using a machine, just rotating it a few times, and I can see on my, I don't know if you can see that on my fingers there, there's actually a few little bits of black dust coming out. So put the axle rod back in again and check. It's still a bit stiff, so we'll just repeat the process. Yes, no wonder there were sticking keys in this instrument. All right, that's better now, that's swinging freely. So we'll just go through and repeat that process for each lever. This could take a while, because you have to be very, very gentle with this, very careful not to actually remove any wood. I just noticed something about this. Somebody's tried to fix this keyboard before, because on the side of this lever there's a lot of, somebody scribbled pencil on here, because graphite is a nice dry lubricant. There's no sign of it rubbing though. So that was probably an attempt to fix the wrong thing, because it's definitely the holes in that. You see that? I can rotate that just by rotating the lever. Shouldn't be able to do that, because the levers are wood, and wood changes with changes in temperature and humidity. These problems can come and go as the weather changes, and they tend to happen more at this time of year in the autumn. Sometimes this tightness is just overcome by the spring, but it does mean that if the axle is tight and the spring's having to overcome that friction, it means that the instrument will feel less responsive. So as well as fixing keys that stick open, this should actually make the the whole instrument feel a bit nicer to play. You can see that there's, looks like a cat hair. Sometimes I can tell what sort of pets people have from the hairs that get caught up inside the instruments. So the additional process that we can do is to put some graphite in that hole to act as a dry lubricant. So this stuff called Winslip, a mixture of graphite in an alcohol carrier, so the carrier evaporates completely. And it's very messy stuff. If you get it on your fingers, it travels everywhere, though it does wash off easily enough. So I just put I'll do that again. I use a cocktail stick dipped into it, and that fits through the hole and allows me to deposit a bit of graphite into the hole. And then we'll just go through and do that to all of them. So that's everything cleaned out now, lubricated with graphite and ready to reassemble. So the axle rod has a slight point at one end, which is the end that goes in first. So if you do this job, make sure you get it the right way around. So I'm going to put this into the drill chuck again. And before putting any levers in, I'm just going to check that it goes in smoothly. In fact, it goes in with just finger pressure for most of its way in. So now that I introduce the axle rod, and you should be able to see there that the rod in between the partitions of the keyboard. So it needs to go in so it's not quite into the first partition. And then the first key, the first lever. So this is number 19, that's the last one out, so it's the first one in. The spring's got to be compressed in that sense. So you have to take a little bit of care of how the spring goes. Insert the lever and then just gently press in the axle until you find the hole, and that's it in. And that's moving freely now. And then we again just repeat that process. This is the trickiest part because you can't see where the hole is. You just have to do it by feel. That's it. So on this instrument, the shorter levers for the inside row sits a little bit higher than the longer levers. So that's I'm going to use for the next ones. I'm going to use that as a guide to help me get the lever in the right place. There's a lot of repetitive jobs like this in repairing squeeze boxes, because basically for every button you've got, every note, you've got the same thing, the same levers for each one, same, you've got reeds for every one, and so you have to carry out the same operation many times. Now I'm going back and checking all of the levers as I go, because sometimes those slight roughnesses on the axle that I noticed at the beginning, sometimes when they get to a certain position they can cause problems. And that's the last lever in place. Now it just needs to finish off to push the axle rod all the way home, not forgetting to leave a little bit projecting so that the next time somebody has to do this job, there's something to get hold of. So there we are, all back together. Just check everything works freely. That all sounds good. So we need to put the cap back onto the axle. And then we can put the reed blocks back in and put the whole instrument back together. Some of these small screws are really tricky to get back into place, especially if you can't really reach where they're going very easily. So here's a little trick. This is some wax that's normally used for fastening reeds onto reed blocks. We just rub a little bit of wax on the end of the screwdriver. That sticks the screw on the screwdriver long enough to get it where it needs to go. Right, all back together. Now we'll find the other half of the instrument. I'll fit the bellows pins. And we could and it's all working nicely. So we just need to put the treble grill back on with its two fixing screws. And that's it. Job done.